North Korea continues to march to the beat of its own drums, continually escalating tensions through various provocations. Unfazed by increased international pressure, the regime fired off 2 ICBMs in July alone. While the UNSC passed new sanctions over the weekend, it remains to be seen if such measures will draw a different response from the Hermit Kingdom. For our news features tonight, Hye-sung traced things back to the beginning of the latest chain of events.
2017년 7월 28일 밤 대륙간 탄도로켓 화성 14형 2차 시험 발사가 성공적으로 진행됐습니다.
On July 28th, North Korea successfully tested another intercontinental ballistic missile just 24 days after its first Hwasong 14 missile test. This time, the missile flew a little over 45 minutes for a distance of around 1,000 kilometers. If fired on a flatter trajectory, most experts say, it will put major U.S. cities such as Los Angeles within range. North's second ICBM test prompted a stronger response. South Korea and the U.S. conducted joint military drills agreeing to temporarily deploy 4 more THAAD mobile launchers to South Korea, and the U.S. flexing its muscles testing an unarmed ICBM on August 2nd.
The era of strategic patience is over. The President of the United States is leading a coalition of nations to bring pressure.
After days of negotiation,
today, the full Security Council has come together to put the North Korean dictator on notice. And this time, the Council has matched its words and actions.
The UN Security Council unanimously passed a new resolution Saturday local time, the toughest one yet, that bans North Korean exports of coal and iron and forbids countries from giving any additional permits to North Korean laborers.
Washington and Beijing have made a compromise. The new resolution will help cut off North Korea's major source of hard currency, but it excludes oil exports, a lifeline to the North's economy, and doesn't impose secondary sanctions on Chinese companies and individuals who have helped North Korea evade sanctions. The current level of sanctions may not be strong enough to totally isolate the North.
Despite the adoption of the resolution, there are still sharp differences between the U.S., Japan, China, and Russia.
The deployment of the THAAD system will not bring a solution to the issue of the DPRK's nuclear testing and missile launching. What it will do is seriously undermine the strategic balance of the region.
Both Beijing and Moscow called for a reduction in joint military drills by the U.S. and South Korea, adding that the sanction is not an end in itself, but a way to bring North Korea to the talks, emphasizing engagement.
A power game between Washington and Beijing has already begun in Northeast Asia, a security rebalancing. South Korea is caught in between. Rather than choosing one or the other, South Korea should make clear on its position that a military strike on Pyongyang is too catastrophic, and that the development of THAAD is for deterring Pyongyang. It's important to secure South Korea's interest while bridging the differences between Washington and Beijing.
The Korean government should leave the door open to engage with North Korea, as President Moon outlined in his Berlin Declaration. But we need a more creative approach, let's say declaring to drop out of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Of course, it's not desirable and highly unlikely, but it's time to come up with our own strategic cards.
Since starting his reign in 2011, Kim Jong-un has tested 3 nuclear bombs and more than 80 missiles, accelerating the pace of nuclear weapons and missile development.
Kim Jong-un will not give up nuclear weapons development. It's tied to the regime's survival. North Korea even revised its constitution in 2012, claiming itself a nuclear state. We are not sure when the North will master all the technologies like missile guidance and a smaller nuclear warhead, but it's getting closer by the day.
Time is ticking. 33 days after its first ICBM test, countries with differing interests in Northeast Asia have come to an agreement to pressure the North. But it remains to be seen whether the tougher sanctions will change Pyongyang's behavior and de-escalate tensions, or whether they will trigger more provocations, including a nuclear test. Hye-sung, Arirang News.